true crime story that sent shockwaves across the country.
All of us are shaken.
4 murders, and then the guys just running around on the loose is a little unnerving.
The victims, 4 college students.
Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee. I miss her smile. She was so giving.
Positive and fun, and we love her and miss her so much.
Now, a PhD criminology student accused of the murders.
How you feeling, Brian?
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger.
Hello. How you doing? How y'all doing today?
Every inquiring mind wants to know why. Why would Bryan Kohberger do this?
The maximum penalty is death and/or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Plus the evidence.
On that knife sheath was DNA, likely left there by the killer.
Including those 12 times when he's hanging around this house. You better have a pretty good reason for this. Guess what? The defendant, the suspect, the accused, what does he drive? A white Elantra.
The way that we have been convicting Kohberger is absolutely appalling and disgusting.
I want all the evidence out. I want it to be clear.
If I'm the parent of one of these poor kids, he is the boogeyman.
I try not to think too much about any of the darker side of the aspects. I just try to stay positive. There'll be days where I have to focus on the negativity, but today's not one of them. I miss her smile, and that she was so giving. When she came home, she was always giving me a hug, always making sure she got a hug before she left the house. Just the simple things. These girls were born 14 days apart. We loved them both so much. It was a great, great story, and I'm sad that it ended, and we lost them both at the same time. I'll never see this car as mine. She paid for it. She felt like this was a super cute car.
It was emotional riding with Steve in Kaylee's car on her birthday. We saw that vehicle at that home each day inside the crime scene tape. Kaylee and her friends Madison Logan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were stabbed to death at the University of Idaho. And that car was part of the reason Kaylee was in town that weekend of the murders.
When she bought her car, it wasn't her birthday, but it was a gift that she gave herself because she just got a new job. So I remember her being super excited for that and, showing Maddie and driving down there and showing her friends off with it.
Those friends, Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, Dylan Mortensen, and Bethany Funk, all lived together in the house on King Road, along with Kaylee's dog, Murphy.
Murphy, you've been a bad boy.
There's a video of all 5 of the girls together in the home posted just 2 weeks before the murders. They're laughing, making fun of each other, imitating each other.
Didn't even do their chores today. I'm just gonna do it. You didn't get out of here. You seriously got to get out of here.
If you look back at their moments, you can actually see their whole lives. These girls really did do the social media stuff.
Get down. Get down.
And these girls, they were everywhere. So people got a taste and a look and a feel of who they really were. I think people connected with that. And then if you go back, you can see, I hate to say it, but the last hours of their lives.
Those last hours included 2 photos posted by Kaylee. On one of them, she wrote, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people." According to investigators, that last night, Ethan and Xana go to a party at the Sigma Chi house. They're there till about 1:45 a.m. that morning. Maddie and Kaylee go downtown Moscow, to a bar called the Corner Club. And then about 1:30 a.m., they walk to a food truck to grab a bite to eat.
And then what was the next?
Don't forget to remove the
Carbonara. The carbonara back of the week.
Here, I'll grab them for you.
Excellent. And then click see rewards. Enjoy. And it looks like you not quite have enough points yet.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
$10.
So about 10 minutes later, the video shows Maddie reaching to grab the food they ordered. Kaylee has her cell phone up as if she's filming the moment. They're laughing with each other until you see them run out of the frame. By 2 a.m., all 5 girls and Ethan Chapin were back at the house on King Road. In just over 2 hours, 4 of the 6 would be dead.
Everybody here? My name is Chief James Fry with the Moscow Police Department. I'm going to be reading from my notes today because I want the information you received to be extremely accurate. The 4 were stabbed with a knife, but no weapon has been located at this time. There was no sign of forced entry into the residence. Based on details at the scene, we believe this was an isolated, targeted attack on our victims.
Right away, I think everyone knew this was going to be a big story. I mean, you've got 4 college students taken down at once inside the same home. And the chief comes out pretty quickly and says, listen, no forced entry here. This was a targeted, isolated attack. So most of us thought it should be solved pretty quickly. But that's not what happened here.
We didn't make sure we clarified. Have them restart this feed or... We arrived in Moscow just days after the murders, and you could immediately sense that this was a community on edge, and you could understand why. 4 young people have been brutally murdered, and nobody knows why, and nobody knows who's responsible. I actually met a group of professors from the University of Idaho. They were out for a bike ride, and they really summed up what the community was going through.
It has deeply affected all our students and our faculty and our staff. And it's been just a struggle to get through this last week. So,
how hungry is this university, this town, for answers?
Very much so. The fact that there isn't an answer makes this even worse, you know.
All of us are shaken. I've heard from people all across the country talking about this tragedy. It's a small college town. We all know each other. People in the community knew these students, so everybody's affected one way or another. And part of it's because we just don't know anything yet.
We also met the prosecuting attorney, Bill Thompson. Any new details?
Nothing that I can share.
How was the crime scene?
I can't talk about it. Everybody's working together. The investigation is still active, absolutely.
How long they're going to stay here at the home?
Don't know, as long as they need to.
I ended up sitting down with Bill Thompson in his office. And remember, they had not identified a suspect. And a lot of people were wondering, are they going to solve this? And it was one of his answers to me that made me think they know a lot more than what they're saying. Would you feel safe having a child living near or on campus?
I would, but I say that knowing that many people would not. And I'm probably I'm in a different situation because of the information and the knowledge that I have of how the investigation is progressing.
Coming up, weeks go by without an arrest.
Just your mind has to spin like, okay, what is going on? You know,
Some people can commit crimes, and there is no justice for that family.
What the families and public didn't know about the investigation.
Partly under her body, partly under her comforter, on her bed, likely left there by the killer.
Go on. Okay, let me turn it back up for us.
Moscow is a very typical university town. It has a vibrant downtown with places to eat, places to drink, places to gather.
There's not really much surrounding Moscow. Rolling hills of just wheat fields and various other farms. Small town feel. I think it's roughly 25,000 people, give or take a couple thousand.
I think of North Idaho as a pretty off-the-map type of place, pretty safe place, very family-friendly, and to have 4 murders and then the guys just running around on the loose is a little unnerving.
Weeks after the murders of Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Maddie Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves, no arrest had been made. To the point that a lot of the students there on campus had cleared out because there was this fear among the community. And even some of the victims' family members had fears that the investigation was stalled.
I had private investigators and different things, and that's why they told me to slow down, Steve. You know, this thing You know, me as a father, it's never fast enough, and I want to just charge ahead like probably just like a dumbass, but that's what I knew.
What the families and the public didn't know was that the detectives had some significant evidence and leads, including DNA and a potential eyewitness. At the time of the murders, according to investigators, Kaylee and Maddie were on the 3rd floor of the house in Maddie's room. Kaylee's dog Murphy was across the hall in Kaylee's room. Ethan and Xana were a floor below. Across from them was Dylan Mortensen, and on the 1st floor was Bethany Funk, who was in her room.
Dylan will be a key witness in all this because she's on the same floor as 2 of the murders. And she opens her door 3 different times. Now, the first couple of times, she really didn't see anything, but she was hearing voices. Maybe it was the dog. Maybe somebody was crying or something. She wasn't quite clear what she heard. But the 3rd time she opens the door, she sees this tall figure dressed in all dark colors, and she noticed his bushy eyebrows. And then this man walks right past her.
Imagine what it would be like to be a young woman who opens the door and sees this man all in black, and all you really see are his eyebrows, and he's tall and he's big. And he just killed 4 people with a knife. He walks right past you and out the door. How close to death were you? It gives me shivers to just think about what that is. And that must just roll through her head every single day. Yeah, that's going to stick with a jury.
According to investigators, Dylan described herself as being in, quote, frozen shock when she saw a man inside her home in the middle of the night. She was so scared, she locked herself in her bedroom. But the thing that raised eyebrows is that nobody did anything about it. In fact, 911 was not called until noon the next day, about 8 hours after the estimated time of the murders.
Some people, when they're very frightened, they just shut down and they tend to isolate and hide. And basically it's a seeking safety response. If she had been drinking or under the influence of something, she might have just shut down because she really didn't know what to do.
The major piece of evidence that the public didn't know about was a knife sheath left behind likely by the killer. It was found partly under Madison Mogan's body and the comforter on her bed. On the snap of that knife sheath was DNA.
So investigators had DNA from the crime scene, and they took the DNA and they ran it through the National Crime Database, and there were no hits, no matches. But the DNA was still useful because you could eliminate potential suspects. And there were a lot of them. Not only ones that law enforcement was looking at, but a whole bunch that people online, all those true crime sleuths that are out there, were looking at as well.
I'd made a video a few weeks ago. Jeremy Regan was included in that video, and a lot of people since then have said that he seemed very suspicious or he was the murderer.
My name is Jeremy Regan, and I live just a couple doors down from where the murders happened.
I first met Jeremy Regan about a week after the murders. He was a neighbor of the girls on King Road. Once people saw Jeremy on camera, many started to speculate that he possibly was the killer. What was it like to be accused of something so horrible?
Offensive. They watched my interview and they said, hey, he's kind of weird. It must be him. And so then they dug into everything I ever did on social media, stuff that my parents had posted about me, taking everything super far out of context. For some people, it was definitely worse than others. I know the various Jacks and Jakes, they got hammered.
Jack Decor and Jake Schreiger. These 2 guys are the boyfriends of Kaylee and Maddie. And as a matter of fact, Jack shared a dog with Kaylee. So a lot of people are looking at them, and investigators looked at them as well, but cleared them. So law enforcement says these guys are innocent, but the folks online weren't convinced.
There was also Jack Showalter, who was at the food truck when Maddie and Kaylee were there. He became known as Hoodie Guy. So people were analyzing the food truck video, and they thought he looked quite suspicious.
There's been a lot of speculation and rumors. We're the official source of information. Individuals who are being harassed in this situation, people need to be careful.
Another early focus of the investigation was video. Detectives gathered recordings from homes, businesses all around the time of the murders in that area. And one thing stood out. One vehicle stood out. That was a white Hyundai Elantra.
We're looking for that car because we believe through our investigation that that car was in the area during the time of the murders.
According to investigators, beginning at 3:29 a.m., the white Elantra made 3 separate passes by the house on King Road. Then, at 4:04, they say it was back for a 4th time, stopping in front of the house before traveling on to do a 3-point turn. It then drove past the house again and out of the camera's view. At 4:20, it was back in view and leaving the area at a high rate of speed.
So everyone's looking for this car, this white Elantra. And there's an officer, a campus police officer from Washington State University, across the state border, who decides to run a list of all the white Elantras on campus. And he finds one. It's registered to a guy named Bryan Kohberger.
They end up finding his car in the parking lot of Kohberger's campus apartment. When they run his name, they find that he had been pulled over twice in the months before the murders, once in Moscow and once in Pullman.
Hello. Sir. Hi, I'm Officer Loangus. Stops being audio and video recorded.
I was just slightly into the crosswalk, so yeah, we're on from Pennsylvania. We actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh.
So even if you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines. Like there's one white line and there's another one. Like there's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of place your vehicle.
During the traffic stop in Moscow, Kohberger gave the officer his cell phone number.
Now, when you get a phone number, it changes everything because you get access to it in a different way. That's one more piece of evidence, one more piece of the puzzle. Is it enough to see what the puzzle says? Not necessarily, but you're getting closer.
According to investigators, Kohberger's phone records showed that between 2:27 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. the morning of the murders, Kohberger's phone was turned off or in airplane mode or possibly out of battery, but it wasn't connecting to any cell phone tower.
Sometimes it's not about evidence. It's about the lack of evidence that actually matters. In this particular case, we had a cell phone that was turned off for a very specific window of time. During a window of time where 4 people were murdered, and he is the singular suspect. That means something.
Investigators say that when they looked back at Kohberger's cell phone records in the 5 months leading up to the murders, that his phone was in the area of the girl's home on 12 separate occasions.
This was not just something where he happened to be in the region one time and it's easily explainable. The problem is now you really have to be able to explain that other dozen times the month before. You better have a pretty good reason for this.
Coming up, the arrest.
Hey, Brian. How you feeling?
How you feeling, Brian? How strong is the evidence against Bryan Kohberger?
You read the affidavit and you just find out that he was stalking them, he was hunting them. He was just a person looking for an opportunity.
Imagine what happens when you're finally able to get the results of the DNA sample. We got this guy. We've got this guy.
We don't know when and how this DNA got there. I'm not at all worried about the DNA.